Hey guys, what is up? It is me, Pagey, here once again with another video on just the DC TV world on the CW and the Arrowverse or, CW-verse as a whole. So we are now in April, just over a week into April, and I'm sure for those that were in need of the human calendar to tell you that, are very appreciative. Anyway, that means we're close to May. Once again, thanks human calendar. But in May, we have the CW upfronts, and that has been a place in the past in which they have revealed certain things, whether that is like a first look trailer for brand new shows, which I'm not sure would be the case this year. I think shows would be done in time, like pilot episodes, but I don't know if a trailer would. I'm not too sure. But in regards to like a trailer for a brand new show, I think the last one for an Arrowverse show was Batwoman because the pandemic sort of messed things around. But outside of trailers, sometimes they do announce like new shows or renewal for shows that haven't been announced yet. But more specific to the Arrowverse, this has been the time where they sometimes reveal the crossover events, whether that be the actual titles or focuses of them. Like I'm sure people remember the Elseworlds reveal, which I'm pretty sure was at the upfronts, or just the fact that there will be a crossover event. They might actually just say, "Hey, there's one. Maybe there's not a name, but there's going to be one." At the end of this year or in 4 months, whatever it is. But something that has been discussed at various different points over the past several months or so, especially following the Armageddon event that, of course, kicked off the Flash Season 8, is whether we will be getting a crossover at the end of this year or towards it at the very least. Like we used to before My Corona poked its disgusting, little, sniffly, shriveled up head out and went, "I'm here, I'm going to ruin things." With a big supporting case for why it should be happening being the fact that we are about to head into the 10th anniversary year of the Arrowverse. Now, there hasn't really been anything much said about a crossover at the end of this year by anyone. Like, no one. Like, we're pretty much the ones talking about it. None of the people have. I think the only real talk about anything into like next season in regards to event stuff is maybe the Flash doing a similar thing that they did at the beginning of this year with Armageddon, but even then that's not a certainty. Eric Wallace just says, if they ask me for something, I have a plan for it. That's pretty much all that's been said in that sort of realm. But to be fair, you usually don't really hear anything about them until like around June-ish, roughly. Like, I think the only one we had a really big head start on in regards to like us knowing about it, the audience, was Crisis on Infinite Earths. And that was really only because they told us at the end of the previous crossover before it, that of course being Elseworlds, it went, "Oh, by the way, next crossover, it's Crisis." So get excited for that. So in regards to that possible crossover at the end of this year, I think we will have to wait a bit longer before we can actually start going like, well, is it actually happening or not? Please tell us so we can stop talking about it or wondering if it's going to happen. But one thing that has constantly been brought up pretty much since the commencement of the shows after that initial lockdown that shut down filming is of course Superman, Flash, put them together, crossover, now, please, thank you. That is something that I see pretty much like borderline daily on social media. And I'm not even on Twitter that much, and I see it pretty much every day. And we've had various like journalists and reporters ask about like referencing within Superman and Lois and all that to the other Arrowverse shows, but not too many times has Todd Helbing, the showrunner for Superman and Lois, especially this season, just been asked straight up about the Flash and Superman crossing over in an episode. It's always been like slightly connected to another question. But DC TV podcasts at I think it was Pallyfest last weekend asked Todd about this, and Todd said he'd love the Flash to cross over as he loves Grant and the cast. And he also added that a lot of the characters do have similarities that would work well together on screen. And even just for the pure fan service of it all, it would be great. Now, I'll leave the entire interview and just DC TV podcast link in the description down below because they did a couple of interviews with various people, so you can watch them all after this video. Now, one thing that's important to remind people of that might not remember or just might not have known at all is that Todd Helbing was actually the showrunner for The Flash in season 4 and 5. And then he left, Eric Wallace took over, and he moved on, and obviously he moved on to start developing Superman and Lois, I'm assuming. So obviously he has good relationships with the cast of The Flash. That's obviously why he says that he loves Grant and the cast, because he spent a lot of time with them. Obviously some of the newer cast members he might not know or really have any connections with, but the main ones that you would think of, from the majority of the show, like he'd have good relationships with them. And I think Todd Helbing might have even hired Eric Wallace, because Eric Wallace's first season was season 4. And of course, Eric Wallace is now the showrunner of The Flash now. So connections. But for a crossover between The Flash and Superman and Lois, What's the most likely outcome? Now, because the two shows are on separate streaming services after the seasons finish, obviously with Superman and Lois, that's HBO Max, and with The Flash, that's Netflix. And of course, I'm talking specifically about, North America. I think it could and should only be one episode for this crossover. It's not a two-parter or anything like that. It's one single episode. Or if they're going to do it, it's a two-parter, but just on the one show. So I guess week after week you get 2 episodes with this crossover. That would be really, really hard to do, I think. So because it's only one episode and it should only be on one show, very similar to the Flash and Supergirl standalone crossovers in the past. Of course, we had Flash go to Supergirl the show for a 1 episode crossover, and then was it a season or two later we had Supergirl go to the Flash show for a 1 episode crossover as well, sorry, which is of course the musical crossover. I'm sure we all remember that. And it would be interesting to see the Flash in Superman and Lois and just how they would like how he looks and like how, in regards to like how they film it and everything. Like I don't think the CGI would be that much different for the most part, outside of like matching it to look good with like how they film the show. But Superman and Lois does use a lot of green screen, so maybe it would look different, or at least just, it look different in general. So I think it'd be interesting to see that. Like we've seen Superman on the Flash, but we haven't seen the Flash on Superman and Lois. So I think that's why it should be the Flash going to Superman and Lois. But if they do this crossover episode, as I'm thinking, what's the story for the crossover episode? And I think the best way to make it not seem like, what's the word, like forced, like overly forced, is that maybe it's downtime in Smallville. Like nothing much is happening, and Lois and Clark invite Barry and Iris to Smallville just to hang out, a weekend away in Smallville, whatever it might be. And they could maybe even tie like Iris into like assisting Lois with a case that she's investigating or something like that, or the other way around, one of the two. And then with Clark and Barry, maybe something hits the fan and they have to suit up and team up and go and do something as Superman and the Flash. Pretty simple, very fun, and very comic booky. Fans would love it, and it just seems like something awesome to do, especially if season 9 of The Flash is the last one. Like that could be the last chance and only chance to do something like that. I mean, it'd be a missed opportunity, in my opinion, not to do it. The other option, which I think actually would be very cool, it's a bit more extra than like just downtime in Smallville, but it could be Lois and Clark, or Lois and Superman visiting Central City, and maybe they could have an episode where Superman is tracking a villain, or maybe it could even be Lois on a case and it takes them to Central City, which then links them up with Barry and Iris, and that would make the episode feel different for Superman and Lois as a show in general, as it's going somewhere outside of Smallville or Metropolis for most of the episode, where really that's where all the episodes take place for the most part for Superman and Lois. It's either Smallville or little parts of Metropolis and everything like that, or like on a green screen set or something like that. So it would be different, them going to Central City, and I think it'd be pretty cool if they went down that route. And of course, you have to have the Flash and Superman have a race. I mean, we saw Supergirl and Flash do this when Flash went to to Supergirl the first time, and also of course Superman and the Flash did it in the Justice League movie, like post credit scene, mid credit scene, whichever way it was. Now, of course, I think you can only do this. I think they'd only go out of their way to make this happen if there's no crossover at the end of this year. I think if they're not doing your proper annual crossover with all the shows, I don't know if they do this. Now, the thing I'm very curious about is that they just started that Earth Prime comic book crossover series. Issue 1's out now. The Superman Lois issue should be out in just over around a week and a half from now. I'm very curious to see at the end of that if that's it. Or do they set up whatever the crossover is going to be for the end of this year in that comic book? Because that's canon. They said it's canon, like the shows are going to reference what's been brought up there. I think the Batwoman writers or someone with Batwoman said, yeah, there's going to be stuff where they reference the events of that comic book, in the next season of the show if it does get picked up. So I'd assume that's going to be the same with all the shows for the most part. So it would be cool if just the comic series as a whole does lead into something later down the track with a crossover with all the shows. Maybe it's not the same villain, because they did say that the villain, like it does seem like the villain's going to be contained or like dealt with in that comic book series. But then again, maybe it like plants a seed, which then we see play out in the live action things, in that annual crossover at the end of the year, which I think would be pretty cool. But obviously we don't know exactly if that's the way that they're going to go. Obviously, we'll have to wait till June, I think it is, where the last issue comes out, until we really know if that's a thing that's actually going to be happening. But if you asked me what would I want, would you want like the annual crossover or the Superman and Flash crossover? I think because it's specifically the 10th year anniversary and you could do some cool stuff and bring some cool people back, it could almost feel like Crisis in regards to like the cast list and bringing people in. I have to go with the annual crossover. I have to go with it. Like it's too big of a thing where I don't think I could turn that down if that was an option. However, if that doesn't happen, then I don't know how you don't do this. Like it just seems like both the shows are there. Like sure they can make some extra time for it. They know in advance whether they're going to do that big crossover or not. So surely they'd be able to plan something around this, especially as I said, if it is the Flash's last season. It could be your last or just your only chance to get it done. So why not do it? Have some fun. Fans would love it, and people would just rewatch it because it would be cool. But yeah, guys, thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, it'd be awesome if you could drop a like on it to show support. Let me know in the comment section down below your various opinions on this. Would you want to see this? Do you think it's a possibility of happening? And if you had to choose between the annual crossover at the end of the year, reminder 10th year anniversary special potentially, or this singular, like, you know, like just a crossover between Flash and Superman and Lois, which one would you want? Let me know in the comment section down below, as well as maybe an interesting story that they could use in that episode if that's you know, what they end up doing or something like that. Just theoretically or hypothetically, what would your story be? But yeah, let me know all that in the comment section down below. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe, and I will catch you guys later. Goodbye.